วัสดีค่ะ
Welcome to my breakdown of episode 1 of season 3 of The White Lotus. Now, if you've been with the channel for a while, you know that I've been watching and covering this show since the very beginning, and I am just beyond excited to be your tour guide for this new season that takes us to Thailand. So let's admire the monkeys, and please don't eat from the pong pong trees, and let's break down this episode, spoilers ahead. We open this season with a shot of one of the local monkeys as we get this beautiful establishing shot, which just reminds me of how beautifully shot this show is, as we're introduced to Amrika and Zion, who are about to begin a meditation session. Now, Zion says that his mother sent him here to kind of unwind and relax because of some recent stress and because of school and finals, and you notice he pauses and says that he's also here because of some other stuff, definitely something to pay attention to moving forward. As they begin the process of finding silence, we see Zion suddenly hears gunshots in the background being fired and breaks his focus. Now, Zion tries to rejoin the session, but the shots are continuing and the sounds are getting louder and closer as he stops this session and they see people running around them and the shots hit them where they're at. Now, Zion says that his mom is out there, and clearly we can see he's concerned about her as the shots are getting closer to them as the instructor runs out of the way, but Zion heads towards the shots to look around for his mother. As he jumps in the water and starts looking around, he stops at a Buddha statue and prays for his mother's safety and to forgive him for his sins and to make sure that they both don't die. Now, after that quick prayer, we see that the shots actually stop as Zion notices a dead body floating around him. Now, I couldn't tell if his reaction was due to seeing a dead body. I mean, obviously it's not something you see every day, or if he might have met this person while he was in Thailand, like briefly, or maybe he personally knows them potentially, or just seeing this dead body gets him in the worst mindset and thinking about the safety of his own mother. Now, I thought this was a very impressive way to open up this new season and kind of throw us right into the mix. Compared to the other openings from season 1 and 2, you remember from season 1, we met Shane on his honeymoon, and we were led to believe that maybe his wife was the dead body being loaded into the plane. Now, compare that to season 2, where we remember we had Daphne who was taking a swim and she discovered the body of Tanya. And here we're essentially thrown right into the situation of the mystery death. And right now we're led to believe that the shots are associated with the person's dead body. And right now I'm thinking it's probably like some robbery gone wrong. But again, it may or may not be connected to why this person is dead in the water. Now, I'm not thinking Zion thought that that was his mother's body in the water, because he would have probably went towards the body instead of running away from the body. And we also don't know if the dead body was a male or a female. Now, of course, we get the confirmation later in this episode, but put that aside for just a quick moment and going by the opening scene, it was safe to assume that Zion was going to be revealed to be the son of the returning character of season 1 and Belinda, because a lot of the signs point towards that being the reveal. First off, he said he's from Hawaii, and we remember that Belinda lived there and worked there. He said that his mom was into meditation and spiritual things, and again, we know that Belinda was the manager of the spa and wanted to open up her own place. And lastly, I don't remember the full details, but I'm sure that she mentioned having a son finishing up high school in season 1, and obviously the big giveaway is that they share the same last name, so yeah, I probably should have started with that. Now, we cut to 1 week earlier, and to make it even more obvious that Zion being Belinda's son, the first person we see following that open scene is Belinda, or this could be the show pulling a bait and switch. Maybe it's actually not her son, but we know that it is. Either way, here we see the rest of the season's incredible cast. Now, we have 2 sets of couples this season in a friend group, starting with Rick Hatchett, who's traveling with his young girlfriend, Chelsea, which, by the way, shout out to Amy from Sex Education. I used to love that show before it went terribly downhill after the 3rd and 4th season. Now, you notice across from them is a couple giving them looks of judgment of Rick smoking and maybe also judging Chelsea for taking pictures, and that's Mr. and Mrs. Ratliff. Now, here we have Timothy, who's described as a wealthy businessman and vacationing with his wife Victoria and their 3 kids, Saxton, Piper, and Lachlan. Next, we have the longtime friend group, Kate, Jaclyn, and Laurie, which shout out to Carrie Coon. I'm a big fan of her as an actress, and also this happens to be another great HBO show that she's a part of, the other one being one of my favorite shows of all time, and HBO's The Leftovers. Now, we see the start of this dislike between the characters Rick and Timothy, who get into a bit of a heated exchange because Rick doesn't want to put out his smoke, as we see Sexton has to step in to cool things down. Now next we meet the actual staff of the White Lotus this season. Here we have security guard Guy who sees Mook, who's a health mentor for the guests of the White Lotus, on the side of the road with her broken bike as he gives her a lift. Now as your tour guide, just taking a little detour here, who else watching this was vibing out to the song playing in the background during the introductions, and that song being 1984's Made in Thailand by Carabelle? I tell you what, there's two things you can always count on about this amazing show, and that is a beautiful scenery, incredible atmosphere, and the music is always on point. Now here we meet the general manager, Fabian, who tells, I believe it's Kun Skunnera, who's one of the owners of the White Lotus and pioneered this health wellness program, that the guests are almost here for arrival, but she's not ready yet because she has to impress one of her guests. Again, I cannot stress enough how beautiful this show is. Look at this shot here as they arrive and are welcomed to the White Lotus in Thailand. Now we see Chelsea makes Rick take the welcome gift as they're introduced to the owner. Now this may be from a biased point of view, but Fabian claims that their wellness is the best in the world. We see Chelsea complimenting Mook's beauty, who by the way will be their health mentor for the week, but we can see that Rick seems not to be so happy to be on this vacation, even though we later find out that this was his idea to come here. Now as we see, compared to the others, they're the only group who we don't find out what led them exactly to Thailand. Now you can't say that last part about the Ratliff family because they love to talk, and I bet Fabian regrets asking how they found out about the resort. As they're greeted next, I just know they're going to be so much fun to follow this season. I can just tell they're going to fill up the cup with drama and plenty of laughs. Now to me, Victoria and Timothy seem like the couple that love to brag and share unnecessary and unsolicited information to anyone they first meet. Long story short, we learn Timothy and his oldest son went to Duke, Victoria went to North Carolina, and their youngest just got accepted into both colleges. Now their reasoning for being here is because their middle daughter, who's a senior at North Carolina, is studying religion and writing a thesis on Buddhism and wants to interview a monk, and the parents decided to make this a family trip. You get a sense that Piper maybe didn't want to make this a family trip, but you also can make the assumption that her parents like to assert themselves into anything they want. Now, the owner clearly ain't got time for their life story and doesn't have any follow-up questions or shows interest in their family history, and you could tell that kind of bothered Timothy and Victoria. Now, we find out why the owner rushed off the Ratliff family because we watch her personally welcome the friend group because she and her husband are fans of Jaclyn, who's a star on television. Now, we learn that they've known each other since they were 9 years old, but they now live in different cities and their life has been really busy, but they want to use this trip as kind of a way to play catch-up. Now, as they're talking, in comes shirtless Valentine, who will be their health mentor for the week. Now, he's said to be the best of the best and gets requested by all the guests because he's Russian and handsome, says the owner. Now, the ladies seem very pleased with their health mentor, Valentine of the week. Now, first thing that came to mind after this interaction was, I wonder if any of them were married or in a relationship with a partner, and if single or if not, I wonder if they will have some interest in Mr. Valentine or any man of that matter on this vacation, and if any possible jealousy or temptations will come from it on this catch-up girls trip. Now, we see that Belinda is welcomed privately by Punchai, who she's been speaking to over the phone before arriving to set up a work program that would teach her some new tricks and techniques to take back to Maui, because remember, they said that they're the best wellness program on Earth. Now, taking a look at who I'm calling again right now, these set of characters will be the most fun and provide us with some of the most best standout moments this season as we take a look at the Ratliff family. Now, as they settle in, we learn that Saxon works for his father's company, and based on this episode, he most likely is a kiss up to his father and thinks that he's God's gift to women. Now, we also see that there is a sibling rivalry over the attention to who's going to bunk and hang out with their youngest brother on this family vacation. Now, they learn that they're staying at a digital-free villa that encourages their guests to be present and to focus on self-care and one another by releasing their electronics for the week. But luckily, it's optional, and besides Piper, they decide to hang on to electronics for the week. Now, Sexton seems to be a piece of work, but we get some potential foreshadowing here as he picks up a poisonous and deadly fruit to eat from the pong pong tree. Now, Pam tells him that the seeds are toxic and they can actually kill you, so that makes me think maybe that floating body that was in the opening scene may not have been shot and killed, maybe they ate the forbidden deadly fruit. Now, Victoria and Timothy aren't receptive to Pam's health plans for the week, who is going to be their actual health mentor for the week, by the way, as she goes over the test to set their personal health goals. But we see that Victoria heard the word test and about damn ran home after hearing that word, as Timothy lets Pam know how the tests and the goals will be going for the week. I'm going to call it now. I think Pam might be a sleeper as far as entertainment goes for us as audience for this season, and she may be this season's version of Armand, R.I.P. Now, catching up with Rick and Chelsea, she tells Mook all the places they've recently visited because Rick barely works and Chelsea used to be a yoga instructor. Now, Chelsea mentions that once Rick gets an idea in his head that it's hard to change his mind, as again, we see that he's not very friendly of a guy as he talks to Mook and asks if the owner is married, and he learns that her husband, who's very famous by the way, he recently went into the hospital but went to Bangkok, and we see that this was a disappointment for Rick. Now, I think we can all agree that there's something definitely mysterious going on with Rick, and he's got some type of situation going on that's very suspicious as we get this one-on-one scene between him and Chelsea. Again, he won't say why he's here and hasn't even told her why they're here, and he doesn't respond when mentioning why they couldn't go to Australia for some reason. Again, there's definitely something shady going on with Rick, and just speaking to this relationship so far, it seems kind of new, and it doesn't seem stable like at all, and there's no signs that they actually love each other. I wonder if there's a baby girl, sugar daddy situation going on between these two, because he doesn't seem all that interested in her as he has this look of concern on his face. Now, we see the friends are happy to be together and learn that Jaclyn actually paid for them to be here, which I definitely bet that comes up in some type of disagreement at some point this season. Reason I say that is because Kate mentions paying for their own treatments and offers to pay for some of Jaclyn's. I feel like Jaclyn paid for everything to cover up for the fact that they've had lost time and she wants everything to be perfect. And then on the opposite side, I think Kate may feel bad or doesn't want to give off the illusion that she needs help paying for things, and that's why she offered to pay. Now, Laurie, on the other hand, seems like she's just happy to be here and away from her day-to-day life and happy to have a free trip and being with her old friends that I don't know if she actually is that close to them or if she ever was close to them, but maybe when they were younger. Now, there's some awkwardness when the topic of how they look being middle-aged women comes up and how great Jaclyn looks, and the conversation goes into plastic surgeries that they've had over time. Definitely can get the sense that there's some animosity within this group, and it looks like they haven't been around each other for a long time. And this, oh, it's so happy to see you, I love you, and this kumbaya is all a facade for now. I wonder if something happened between this group of women and why they were separated for so long, besides obviously, as they mentioned later, that Jaclyn got famous, but I wonder whatever that reason may be is what tore them apart for so long. Now, Belinda meets the rest of the staff, and we find out that she's been through some rough couple years, and she's very grateful for this 3-month program that opened up. Do you all think that she might still be upset from Tanya's false promises to helping her open up her shop? Which, speaking of Tanya, I wonder if she even knows that she died in season 2. Now, Belinda almost has a damn heart attack when she sees a monitor lizard running around, and she's told that over time she's going to probably become friends with the lizards. Definitely can see some callback to her to the local animals coming into play at some point this season. Now, here's where she meets Brahma, the creator and Hindu god. Now, as we'll discuss later, religion and spirituality will play a big role in this season. She learns of their customs, on how they feel that spirits are always surrounding them, and the importance of gifting offers for good luck and protection. I feel like this will come back into play at some point and being revisited by the opening shootout. You notice how Belinda bumps into her offering as we hear this ominous music play in the background? Is that a sign for dark times coming her way? Now, as we take another detour in this episode breakdown, I just have to point out the insane shot of the water floating on a leaf. Let's just collectively pause and appreciate the beauty of the show. And oh yeah, don't forget to hit that like button. Now, Godok appears to have a thing for Mook as he's questioning why she's taking interest in Hollinger's guards, who we learned from earlier is the owner's famous husband. She says that she likes the fact that the guards get to travel and they're paid very well. Now, my guy Godok is clearly in love, calling her princess and looking at her all deeply. Now, we know from the previous seasons that the workers' relationships are always fun to watch, but they never really have a happy ending. But I'm rooting for my boy Godok to get the girl of his dreams. They both seem like really nice people. Now, we see Sexton at the pool scouting for women and spots Chelsea, who pays him no mind. Now, I'm really interested to see if this goes anywhere this season because they're clearly close closer in age than her and Rick, and not saying that she's into Rick just for the money, which I think it is, but if so, I would imagine that Maxton got some credit cards in his wallet that he'll like to spend on her just to impress. Now we see Piper and Lock Key at a monastery, and she's nervous and doesn't want to go in as her brother decides to leave. Now I wonder where this hesitation stems from. Is she embarrassed of her family, or where she comes from, or it appears that she's considering making plans to change her religion, and maybe she's afraid of her parents' response and them not accepting her new religion, or maybe she's like thinking, hey, cultural appropriation. Like, I'm just this rich white girl coming here and trying to take on the culture. So again, I'm very curious on where the hesitation comes from Piper. Now, to my last point about Piper's interest in Buddhism, we see Victoria talking to her husband, and she mentions why they had to come this far, and she hasn't taken interest in her own religion. Again, this seems to be something that bothers them, and it seems to be like a sensitive subject matter about acceptance and identity. Now, we see that Timothy gets a missed call and listens to a voicemail from a Wall Street journalist. All signs to me that are pointing towards there being some money issues that are coming afoot. Now, back at the pool, the two brothers meet up as we see Sexton sets his sights on the women, or as he says, cougars. He introduces himself and recognizes that Jaclyn's from TV, but my guy ain't getting no play from any of the women so far, as Chelsea shuts him down quickly after he tries to flirt with her.
It's a numbers game, Lock. You gotta play the numbers.
Now, as it's now nighttime in the show, which tends to be the time of the show that brings out the toxicity and the drama and shows the worst within the characters. Taking a look at the Ratliff family first, we see Timothy isn't impressed with his daughter's efficiency in planning out things because she didn't lock in her interview with the monk prior to their arrival. Now, we see that there's a conflict cooking under the surface on where Lockheed's going to be attending college. Will he attend Duke like his father and older brother, or will he go to North Carolina like his sister and mother, who, by the way, she's whispering go to Tar Heels to him during this conversation jokingly. Now, I can see the pressure of him fighting over who he's going to spend time with on his vacation between his siblings coming up, but also his parents pointing him in the direction of what school they want him to go to, and also his sexuality comes up a little bit later in this episode. I can see all that coming ahead for young Lockheed this season, and he may blow off some steam in a very self-destructive way. Now, checking in with Rick and Chelsea, we get this funny moment where she's not that used to fine dining, as she is unaware of the taste this first before I give you a full glass method, as Rick just can't seem to find any peace or happiness here as he complains about the food options, again, even though he was the one to choose this spot for vacationing. I think this might be a little bit of foreshadowing going on, and I don't think this is a coincidence as we hear Chelsea mentioning that,
"No, I'm going to help you get your joy back."
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh. Good luck with that.
Even if it kills me.
as he leaves her at the table and heads back to his room. I bet you this lack of interest and also this level of distance he's creating between him and Chelsea will end up pushing her towards Sexton if he is persistent. Now, Timothy calls back the Wall Street Journal guy and asks him about some case involving a Kenneth individual and their relationship with the government with Brunei. Now, Timothy plays coy about the questioning and rushes off the individual off the phone, and he gives this look of like, oh shit, that whatever Kenneth situation finally came out from the dark into the light. Now, Timothy gives Kenneth a call, and he leaves him a voicemail with urgency to call him back ASAP. As him and Rick say some nice words to each other, again setting up this rivalry between the two, something that both seasons has always had is like two individuals that don't like each other coming to a head at some point in the season. Now, as Rick heads into his room, he's looking at photos of Jim and the owner of this White Lotus. Again, he's definitely up to no good. It's making me thinking that he's casing the joint, or maybe casing Jim, and maybe he is planning some robbery and he might be connected to what happened in the opening scene. Meanwhile, we see Chelsea meets a model by the name of Chloe and they hit it off. She's lived here on the hill for over a year and she's annoyed by her boyfriend, and is no other than the ex of Tanya, who played her for her money and also was a BLM member, and that's no other than Greg. Now, we end this premiere episode with Laurie and Kate talking to Jaclyn about the inconveniences of being famous. Now, Kate claims that she knows exactly what it's like because back home in Austin, everyone knows her and her husband's company and they just want to be her friend, but they only do that because they want something from her. Now, this confirms me mentioning if any of them are in a relationship, as we learn that both Kate, who has kids by the way, and Jaclyn are in a relationship, but it looks like Laurie is the odd one out. Now, to me, it sounds like Kate is a stay-at-home mom and Jaclyn we know is to be famous. Meanwhile, Laurie works in corporate America and has a daughter, but it appears that she's not with the father. There's no doubt in my mind that at some point there's going to be a fight that's bound to erupt between these group of women. Kate to me seems like the annoying, look at me, I'm living a perfect life so far. Meanwhile, Jaclyn seems happy and famous, but definitely has some maybe Hollywood secrets in her closet. Maybe her show is coming to an end. Meanwhile, we have Laurie, who's living a much different life than her other two friends, and she's working in corporate America. She's a mother again. I don't know if she's married or not, but we see her head back to the room, look at her friends, and she bursts out into tears. One would imagine that she's upset not being in the position of her friends, but I bet you they're just as depressed or secretly wishing they had a more simple lifestyle. Now, our final shots show Piper listening to a book while her brothers talk about her life choices. Now, I didn't think much of it earlier, but Sexton is a weird individual about his sister and talking about sleeping in different rooms because of their genitals, and now he's saying that his sister's pretty hot, but she might be a virgin. Now, as they go to bed, Sexton asks his brother what type of porn he's into as he asks the most important question of the episode.
Real question is, how the fuck am I going to jerk off with you in here all week? Yeah, I'll just go to the bathroom.
That was just weird to me. And question for you all, is Lockheed attracted to his brother? Now we see Victoria in bed with her husband, hyping him up before they go to sleep, and he's talking about Rick most likely is jealous of him and his perfect life and his perfect family. But I don't think Timothy thinks so highly of himself, and whatever this Kenneth situation is, I think it's gonna come back and break this perfect life he's built as we end this incredible premiere episode. I really do think this was a great premiere episode to really establish this world and the tone, and also these type of relationships and character dynamics we'll be getting this season, but also giving us a little taste of the themes that we'll be exploring with death and Eastern spirituality and religion. Now, of course, we have to start the guessing of who is going to end up dead by the end of the season. Now, remember in season 1 was one of the employees of the White Lotus and Armand, and season 2 was, of course, the guest and Tanya. So would this season maybe have both? Will we maybe get 2 deaths this season? Maybe a staffer dies, like Guy Doc, getting shot trying to do his job as a security guard, or maybe even protecting his love interest in Mook. Now, looking at the opposite side, if it's a guest of the White Lotus, right now my obvious choice being Rick, with him being so suspicious, and me having my thoughts that he's casing the joint and he might try to rob someone like the owner. Now, I think there's definitely something to say or to speculate about why these people are here and what led them here. On face value, the Ratliff family seems to enjoy family time together, but I feel like Timothy decided to make this a family thing because I feel like he sensed that something bad was coming his way, and the best way to avoid this is to travel across the world and wait for the heat to cool down. Now, it wasn't lost on me that Victoria was a pill popper this episode, and she was constantly tired and sleepy. I definitely think there's something there to explore, but also, speaking of exploring, their kids seem to be very interesting characters, and I'm really excited to see what comes of them this season as well. Now, again, Rick is 100% up to no good, but what exactly is he doing? Now, as far as Chelsea's concerned, she seems to be very carefree, but it will be interesting to see what comes of her and her new model friend, and of course, Greg, who I don't anticipate being that involved this season, but it was an unexpected surprise to see him in this episode. But I do see the longtime friend group pretending to be happy turning into a conflict at some point this season, and we'll probably learn the root of their actual relationship and if they're actually friends or if they're just saying that, thinking back to they were kids and wanting to recapture that happiness of when they were friends, or they're going to just find out that they've grown apart and they really weren't actually friends, or at least they're not friends as adults. So there you have it. That's my breakdown of the first episode of this new season of The White Lotus. Now, I love this show, and I love the conversations that come from it, and it's obviously a much different type of a show that I normally cover on this channel, but again, I just have such a fun time watching this, and more importantly, I love talking about it with you all, and I really appreciate you all. So if you're still here, put in the comments right now, #Thailand. So please share your thoughts about this premiere episode in the comments below. Who's your favorite group of characters so far? Who are you most excited to learn more about? And of course, let me know in the comments, put in your theories and your thoughts on who's going to end up dead by the end of the season. Now, if you all enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button. Let's try to get this to 1,000 likes. I want to be your tour guide, your main tour guide for this season. Please consider sharing this video. And if this is your first time here and watching one of my videos, welcome to the channel. Consider sticking around by subscribing today. Now, if you all want to show even more support to the channel, do me a favor and consider joining the channel memberships. Now, I'll be covering every episode this season and I'm excited to do so. So with all that being said, don't forget, you all are awesome, stay safe, and remember,
สวัสดีค่ะ
Lotus.